Remember what it was like to be a kid? To explore and play. To roam free all day. In Jamestown, North Carolina, we get out of the grind and escape into the moment. People feel good here. Let loose here. Eat well here. Feel swell here. We go for a ride or an afternoon stroll. We cheer each other on. And go for the goal. Here, a treasured history meets the energy of a town on the rise. In a place with true heart and soul, and where we have our own special beat. Jamestown, North Carolina, where history and possibility meet.
I'd like to call this meeting to order. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Yes, Councilmember Glanville.
Here.
Councilmember Rayburn.
Here.
Mayor Montgomery.
Here.
Councilmember Burgess.
Here.
Councilmember Wolf.
Here.
A quorum is present.
Thank you. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Councilmember Granville, would you lead us in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please bow your heads for a moment of silence. Thank you. Council, do we have any changes to the agenda?
Yes, I'd like to request to add a proclamation declaring May 5th through May 11th as Municipal Clerks Week as the last item on the consent agenda, to remove the consideration of award of contract to the lowest responsible bidder for shelters at the Jamestown Park from the agenda, and to remove the consideration of award of contract to the lowest responsible bidder for the basketball court at Jamestown Park from the agenda.
A second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. And do I have an approval for the consent agenda?
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Katie, do you have anyone sign up for the first public comment?
Yes, Christina Reeser.
Christina Reeser, 2621 Glass House Road, Jamestown. I'm here to speak regarding the May 3rd, 2024 Music in the Park incident. While Matthew Johnson would like to have everyone believe we had ill intent, we were two moms providing a public service to Jamestown residents and community because the town of Jamestown fails to inform the public about Jamestown's horrible water quality. The nondescript bottles were Food Lion brand bottles with the Jamestown United Jamestown's Towner sleeve. Not once did we approach or harass anyone. We set out signs with factual information, had water bottles and copies of a May 1st, 2024 NCDEQ press release to provide interested parties who inquired. Now let me educate the town council on the error of Matthew and the Park Recs director, Scott Coakley's ways. We were threatened with removal by Guilford County Sheriff. Yet when pressed, Neither could give us reasons why we needed to leave. We were told this is our event and we were hurting vendor sales. However, this is a public park and personal food and drink were allowed. Alcohol is the only item banned. They could not cite a town ordinance, nor would they, as there was nothing to which they could eject us. We left on our own accord. Let me remind you, Ren Miller Park was funded by NC Parks and Recreation Trust Fund grants. These monies, totaling close to $200,000, were used to purchase and update the park. These monies come with obligations including the park must remain public at all times without membership, with full or partial closure of park being a violation, and not discriminate against any person on the basis of race, sex, color, national origin, age, residency, or ability with regard to using property or facilities funded with park assistance. And for Matthew and the town clerk, Katie Weiner, to say that the event was invitation only, were you aware that the music and park vendors and guests had to be invited by the town of Jamestown? I saw no one checking identifications or accepting tickets for this event. It was very publicly advertised via a huge banner along Guilford Road, town council meetings, town of Jamestown website and social media pages, and the Jamestown News. It's funded with taxpayers' dollars held in a public park. Also, who is your Title VI liaison? The last I checked, Sharon Apple retired back in January 2023. I could find nothing on the town of Jamestown website regarding Title VI compliance process, complaint form, nor any indication who succeeded Sharon. And one last note, the Supreme Court recently ruled on public officials and social media usage. If the listening public has been banned by a town council member, staff, or volunteer, and or they are using their personal profile for any form of town business, please be advised they can be subject to litigation. And last question, does town council know the actual tax dollars being spent on these music in the park events? I filed a FOIA and was informed by the town clerk. I will send you the requested documents when they are ready. It's been going on 2 weeks. Thank you.
Yes, Robert Frederick.
Mayor and council, I think we collectively have a problem. You all too. It's a lack of information. Tonight we're about to start a budget hearing, and council held all 3 of its budget retreats without the benefit of the annual comprehensive financial report. It's the 2nd year in a row now in which that report has been really late. A report is due by state law in the fall. Last year it wasn't published until late April. This year it still isn't published. So winter passed, now spring is nearly over, and still no report. Last year, the absence of that report until late April meant council went through its budgeting process and the public hearing started about the budget without knowing how the Guilford County reevaluation of property was going to affect tax revenues. As we now certainly all know, that reevaluation meant, for most people, their property values went way up, which meant their tax bills, mine too, went way up, which meant that Jamestown's tax revenues would go way up, and would have gone way up even if Jamestown had kept the tax rate the same. But last year, council passed a 20% tax rate increase anyway. And now in this year's budget, we can see that Jamestown has already received, in May, more money in property taxes than was budgeted. Budgeted revenues from property taxes was to be about $3.1 million, but Jamestown has already received $3.3 million, and the fiscal year isn't over until the end of June. Knowing this, it's rather shocking that this council, and I realize there's been an election since last year's council, would consider raising property taxes again without having the right information, again without having the annual comprehensive financial report. Now, I know there's a clock on making this budgeting decision by the end of June, but please insist on getting that annual comprehensive financial report done and published first. And please be willing to change the budget significantly based on that information. Finally, I will close by giving tonight's budget hearing some context. If you all approve the property tax increase, Jamestown's property taxes will be 0.635, which is about 2 cents higher than High Point's rate of 0.6175. You may say, well, there's no comparison, right, between Jamestown and High Point? Well, no, there shouldn't be. High Point's population is more than 24 times larger than Jamestown's. What the former council did in 2021 approved the Envision Jamestown Comprehensive Plan from Benchmark that listed High Point as a peer community. Thank you.
Is anyone else signed up for public comment?
Nobody else signed up.
Okay. At this time, I'd invite the Public Works staff to join me at the podium for a proclamation. Now I'll turn the podium over to Councilmember Wolf. I think you've got a special presentation to make.
I did. Let's see. Whereas Ed Stafford has followed in his family's tradition of serving the town of Jamestown for decades, and whereas he served on the Board of Adjustments from August 1991 until August 2014, and on the Planning Board from March 2016 to March 2024. Whereas Ed Stafford was appointed to serve as the chair and the vice chair of the Planning Board by his fellow Planning Board members, and as a result of his dedication, experience, and leadership. Whereas Ed has never met a stranger and has the unique ability to make everyone in his circle feel valued and loved. And whereas the work he has done throughout his service has been monumental and is second only to the positive impacts that he has made on those lucky enough to have gotten to know him. Whereas the town of Jamestown and the constituents have benefited from his service and efforts that derive from a true love of his hometown and a great appreciation of his community. Whereas Ed Stafford is a family man and has forged a path in business and in service, and his successes cannot be counted or recreated. And whereas Ed Stafford's absence will be felt by all and his work will be forever remembered. Now therefore I, Councilmember Martha Stafford Wolf, and on behalf of Mayor Montgomery and the Town Council, do hereby express my deep appreciation to Ed Stafford for his distinguished years of service and do extend our best wishes in the next chapter of his life. Be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution shall be spread upon the pages of the official minute book of the town of Jamestown to stand as a tribute to the work and service of Ed Stafford.
Thank you, Martha.
Sherry Richmond, I believe you have a presentation next.
Greetings. Sherry Richmond, 601 Tangle Drive, Jamestown, lovely town. I am here tonight with other members of the Cedarwood Garden Club to make a presentation to the town of Jamestown. The National Garden Clubs Incorporated is presenting this certificate of appreciation to you for the occasion of a Gold Star Families Memorial Byway Marker dedication. That will be this Saturday at 1 o'clock. Everyone is invited, and she doesn't know I'm going to say this, but Charla right here is the chair of this committee. She just didn't want to speak up here at the front, but I got her anyway. Back to the seriousness of this. You are commended for giving tribute to the Gold Star families whose loved ones paid the ultimate price for defending the United States of America, and that is what the Gold Star marker is for. And the three words, honor, hope, healing, are on this marker, and it will be installed, to my knowledge, tomorrow, according to our contacts. It's up from Georgia, and the granite is up from Georgia, a donation from Haynes Lineberry, and it should be installed tomorrow. So I hope to see all of you this Saturday. But for this certificate of appreciation, Lynn Montgomery, if you would come forward. I don't know how you want to do this. This is a certificate of appreciation for the National Garden Clubs Incorporated, and the Cedarwood Garden Club is under this federation. They are federated. And this is for town of Jamestown for all of your support.
Okay, now we're going to get down to some business. Heather, would you come to the podium and introduce our auditor?
Down here, right in. Whoops. Oh, sorry. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I would like to introduce Nick Wicker with Strickland Hardy. Nick is the Director of Nonprofit and Governmental Services. He has extensive experience in governmental accounting and auditing. We would also like to thank him and his team for all their hard work on our audit this year. So Nick, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Heather.
Thank you, Heather.
You can go ahead and start that timer for me too, if you'd like. I don't need but a couple minutes. First and foremost, Mayor Montgomery, esteemed members of the council, Matt, Katie, Heather, in the absence of Faith, like to thank each and every one of you for the opportunity to serve the town of Jamestown. We greatly value this relationship, and we really look forward to our future together. So before each and every one of you, there should be a packet that looks something like this. So this is our annual report summary of the audit for FY 2023. And going ahead and diving in, you can skip past that table of contents. So the services we've performed is the annual audit of financial statements, assistance with the preparation of the financial statements, report to management on observations and recommendations for improvements, consultation on accounting matters, and attendance at council committee meetings as requested. Most importantly on this page, other than the opinions, is we are independent in accordance with Yellow Book 2018, thus enabling us to opine on the financial statements. So getting into the opinions, for the basic financial statements, we express an unmodified opinion. That's the best opinion you can get. It's what we refer to as a clean opinion in the audit profession. So
Nick, could you put the microphone up a little bit?
I don't think anybody's ever told me I'm not loud enough.
Thank you.
Is that better?
Yes, I think so.
Perfect. So this was the first year that, well, I don't know if it was the first year ever, but we actually performed a single audit this year for the town of Jamestown. And so that major federal program we tested was the Coronavirus State and Local Fiscal Recovery Fund, commonly known as the ARPA Fund. And we also expressed an unmodified opinion on that as well. So that's another clean opinion. That's what you want. Some of your required supplemental information in the financial statements consist of the management's discussion and analysis, and then the town's contributions and proportionate share of the net pension liability for Elders, and that's the local government employees retirement system. And then the schedule of changes in total OPEB liability. So for RSI, we do not apply the same procedures as we do for our substantive audit. It's more limited procedures that really consist of inquiries with management, and then we just review the form and the content of it. On to the next page, for the combining and individual fund statements and schedules, same goes there as it went for RSI. And then for the other information that is in the annual comprehensive financial report, the introductory and statistical sections, we do not audit those numbers. We review those for material consistency. So there is no opinion or any assurance put on that. So in regards to the financial statement audit, we did not note any material weaknesses or any significant deficiencies, and no other recommendations that warranted comments on this report. So contacts, Travis Hardy is the engagement partner over this job, and my name's Nick Wicker. Thank you for introducing me. I'm the director. It's right there. So flipping over, we have the two required communication letters with governance. The first one we refer to as the AUC 260, and it is required communication with governance at the conclusion of the audit. I'm not going to read this letter word by word to you guys. Y'all have seen this every year. It doesn't change. I will point out, though, under the significant audit matters, qualitative aspects of accounting practices, we did implement GASB 96 this year, and that is your subscription-based information technology arrangements. But there were no no big issues with that. It wasn't as hard as we thought it would be. It was a little bit easier than the implementation of GASB 87. I think I got to laugh. That doesn't happen very often. And then I'd like to point out that the financial statement disclosure are neutral, consistent, and clear. We did not encounter any difficulties in performing our audit. Matt and company are some of the most hospitable people I've ever dealt with in auditing. We felt very welcome here. It's a really nice facility. There's great places to eat in walking distance. These are all things that are, high on my list. So happy to report there were no disagreements with management. We did obtain a signed management letter yesterday. And no other audit findings or issues that I think we need to discuss at this time. So the next letter in this report is the AUC 265, and it is the communication of significant deficiencies and material weaknesses. The first thing I'd like to point out is how short this letter is. That's a good thing. That means that we did not note any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies. Are y'all ready for the fun part?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. So the first graph we have here is your governmental fund balance for the last 5 fiscal years. So your general fund had an increase of $92,248, or about 2.11%, and all other governmental funds had a decrease of 1.38 million. And that's primarily due to the ARPA fund. There was fund balance carried over from last year, and then all of those funds were actually expended during FY23. Any questions on that so far? Perfect. So the next graph we're going to look at is your governmental fund balance by category. Your non-spendable fund balance increased $22,767, and that consists of leases, prepaid expenses, and inventory. Your restricted fund balance decreased $765,459, and that's primarily due to the decrease in the restricted by state statute. And that's essentially your accounts receivable net and your due from other governments number. So last year it was around 900,000, and this year it's around 300. So that's the big decrease there. Your committed fund balance decreased $622,426, and that's primarily in the recreational maintenance facility fund. And then assigned is zero this year. And what that number is that when you do your budget, if you appropriate fund balance for future expenditures in your next fiscal year budget, you put a line item there, and it's like a placeholder, a reserve for that amount. That didn't happen this year, so that's why it's zero. And then your unassigned fund balance increased $809,746. Any questions? So now we're going to look at your governmental revenues by source. So your ad valorem taxes had an increase of approximately $570,000. Your intergovernmental actually decreased $371,505. And that was primarily due to a decrease in federal grants in FY23 as compared to FY22. Your services and fees increased $91,521, and that's primarily due to an increase in golf participation. And then your other income went up $122,273, and that's largely impacted by interest rates coming back up a little bit. So your capital management trust fund earned some money this year. Any questions? Perfect. So now we'll look at your governmental expenditures for the last 5 fiscal years. Your general government expenditures increased $274,686. Your public services increased $930,884. Public safety was an increase of $184,693. And your recreation was an increase of $1,229,577. And then your debt service expenditures increased $27,747. So everything here, with the exception of debt services, is primarily due to capital outlay. So at the fund level, those are recognized as expenses, but at the government-wide level, those expenditures would actually be capitalized and carried on your balance sheet as fixed assets. Any questions? So now we're still looking at governmental funds, but we're going to break down the general fund and look at its fund balance for the last 5 fiscal years. So non-spendable in the general fund increased $22,767. Your restricted decreased to $765,459. Committed increased $49,989. Assigned, we spoke about that on the last one, and unassigned went up $1,525,399. So the non-spendable is going to be the same. That's your leases. The restricted was that decrease in the restricted by state stabilization. And your increase in committed is due to the opening of the Penny Road Capital Project Fund. Any questions?
Well, but so the general fund balance looks healthy.
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
Absolutely. I didn't include this in my report, but when you actually issue an audit to the LGC, you're required to fill out a data input workbook. And in that, they have financial performance indicators. And so in looking at your fund balance for the general fund versus other municipalities of the same size, Jamestown is in very healthy shape.
Okay.
Your general fund revenues by source, these changes are going to be pretty much the same as on the previous, but your ad valorem taxes did go up about $570,000. Intergovernmental went down about $75,000. Your services and fees went up about $91,000, and your other went up $121,000. Any questions? Your general fund expenditures, so for your general government went up $274,686. Public services, the 1.2 million. Public safety is $184,693. Recreation's $564,437. And your debt service went up $27,747. And again, these increases are primarily due to capital outlay expenditures incurred during FY '23. The next graph we're going to look at is your water and sewer net position for the last 5 fiscal years. So in 2023, you had an increase of $507,205, and that's just going to be a result of operations we'll talk about on the next few graphs. So your net position by category, net investment in capital assets went up $1,713,616. Your water and sewer system development went up $18,500, and that's your system development fees. And unrestricted went down $1,224,911. Questions? So your water and sewer revenues by source. So charges for sales and services decreased $61,263. And your other operating revenues decreased $2,162. Your non-operating revenues increased $281,226, and most of that's going to be tied up in the investments and the North Carolina Capital Management Trust Fund recovering some during FY '23. The last graph we're going to look at is your water and sewer expenses for the last 5 fiscal years. Your salaries and employee benefits went up $140,850. Your professional services increased to $6,050. Your contracted services increased $155,882. Your wastewater treatment payment went up $50,712. Supplies and materials increased $11,132. The purchase of water increased $57,430. Repairs and maintenance went up $21,552. And your other operating expenditures decreased $13,569. Depreciation and amortization increased $38,798, and your non-operating expenses decreased $4,799.
Well, can I ask you a question?
Absolutely.
Go back on the water sewer revenue by sources. The first two items you talked about, charges for sales and services and other operating revenues went down.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you know why that went down, revenue?
Analytically speaking, I can't give you a great explanation for that other than you billed less than in the prior year.
Huh, okay.
Any other questions?
Thank you, Nick.
Thank you all. Thank you for having us, and I hope everybody has safe travels home tonight. Everybody gets home safe, and I hope each and every person in here has a blessed evening. Thank you all.
Thank you
very much.
Thank you for all your hard work. I know it was a rough year.
Well, you know, auditing has its ups and downs.
Yes, I'm sure it does.
This is an initial audit, so it was our first year.
Yes.
You know, Judy, the longtime finance director, was in this position forever.
Yeah.
She retired in July. They implemented a new software for
Yeah.
the financial statement, and it's been a bear.
Yeah, a big learning curve, but
Yep.
it'll get better each year.
But we got there, and I'm confident in telling you guys, we're going to issue this thing by 10/31 next year.
Yeah.
And if I don't, then y'all make fun of me for like 5 minutes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Matthew, the public hearing on the budget is next.
I'll let that warm up for a second. While that's warming up, I'm going to go ahead and begin. So good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm going to read a little bit of the excerpt from the budget message. I think it's important to have that in the record. We are pleased to present the proposed budget for fiscal year 24-25. The budget was prepared in accordance with the North Carolina General Statute, Chapter 159, which is the North Carolina Local Government Budget and Fiscal Control Act. All funds within the proposed budget are balanced, and all revenues and expenditures have been identified. The mission of the town of Jamestown is to, quote, create an exceptional quality of life for all of our citizens by providing superior services. To help the town realize its long-term vision and to continue to meet this mission statement systematically and incrementally, the mayor and council have adopted a strategic plan beginning in June of 2021. Each year, the town council receives updates on the progress and the goals outlined in that plan in roughly 6-month intervals. And Town Council adopts the annual update of its strategic plan during the budget adoption process, which we will do in June. The strategic plan allows for continuity as staff and elected officials change and affords the citizens transparency related to the goals, which helps determine allocation of resources during our annual budgeting process. Over the past fiscal year, the staff have diligently been working to complete goals outlined in our council's strategic plan. Some of the notable accomplishments include seeking grant funding for sidewalks to improve pedestrian connectivity, achieving minimum staffing levels in all departments, further development of the music in the park and town-sponsored events, discussion with utility partners to plan for future needs, and working with Pinecroft-Sedgefield Fire Department to plan for future capital needs. New goals have also been identified, and the staff will begin working on those with the adoption of our new budget in July. Those include seeking of training to enhance customer service, develop and utilize our logos on the golf course for our 50th anniversary to help further market the golf course and the town, development and implementation of a Citizens Academy, clarification of our bidding process for town projects, and discussions for the town's goals and role in marketing opportunities. And finally, there will always be ongoing goals, which the staff will continue to develop, such as providing employee training opportunities, maintaining our codes and ordinances, providing for the repair and improvement and replacement of vehicles and facility needs, maintaining the integrity of our utility infrastructure, and the recruitment of employees from diverse population, among others. The recommended budget for fiscal year 2024-25 totals just over $16 million. for all town operations, capital improvements, transfers, and debt service. The total budget excluding inter-fund transfers amounts to just over $15.5 million. The budget as presented includes a tax rate of 63.5 cents for the 24-25 fiscal year. At this current tax rate, the amount of ad valorem property tax revenues is estimated to be approximately $3.6 million based on a collection rate of 99%. Sales and use tax revenues are expected to be just over $1 million. Tax tag and motor vehicle taxes are expected to be approximately $306,000, and that represents the largest portion of the general fund revenues. I want to talk a little bit, and bear with me, this is for not only your benefit, but also the benefit of the public, because I don't think that a lot of folks understand just how much work that you put into this project. This is a process that begins in January here in Jamestown. We host 3 separate budget workshops, which are all open to the public. Those are January 23rd, March 19th, and April 19th this year. And the first public hearing on this budget will be considered tonight. The public hearing will be continued tonight until the June 25th meeting, where a final vote will occur for adoption. By law, the budget may change up until the time of adoption. I don't know that people, normally understand that, but this is a process that's in flux up until the time of the vote. A little bit more about the process. Government budgeting in North Carolina is controlled by General Statute 159, the Local Government Budget and Fiscal Control Act, as I mentioned. The town must adopt a new budget annually before July 1st, which is the beginning of our fiscal year. Town budget is adopted by ordinance, and that budget ordinance must be balanced. The budget ordinance is not a line item budget document, but it's an overall look at the budget. The annual budget provides the opportunity for our elected officials to review and evaluate programs and services. And in Jamestown, we utilize the council strategic plan that I mentioned, along with other planning tools like the capital improvements plan to assist with formulating the annual budget. The budget ordinance is the 2 or 3 page document that you have to consider. The budget ordinance is arranged by section, and those sections show anticipated expenditures and revenues for each of the funds that are operated by the town. As you can see here at the top of that document, this section, number 1, relates to the general fund, which is the one that everybody is most interested in. And these 2 numbers right here are expenditures and revenues, and they must balance, and they do. You may ask, people may ask, what is a fund? Well, a fund is just an accounting tool. It's a separate accounting entity with its own set of self-balancing accounts. Governmental financial transactions are grouped into funds to help isolate information for legal and management purposes. For simplicity, what I'm going to talk about tonight are the general fund, the water and sewer fund, and our capital project funds. The general fund is the one that most people are interested in, typically budgets for pretty much all of our property tax revenue, sales and use tax revenues, and some other associated revenues. General fund is where your majority of your town services are housed and funded from, like planning department, administration, sanitation, which is garbage and recycling or solid waste, streets, public safety, that's police and fire, stormwater, recreation, etc. The main sources, and this is important, the main source of revenue are property taxes and service fees. I think the mayor said this one year. You have to realize that the government only receives revenue from a couple of different sources, a few different sources, the majority of which are property tax related. The water and sewer fund, which is usually a lot easier for the council to deal with, is an enterprise fund, which means that it's a public service that's financed through fees to its customers, and it's operated more in a business-like manner. Enterprise funds are also known as a self-supporting fund. The water and sewer fund is solely responsible for the water and sewer utility operations. The main sources of revenue in this fund are from water and sewer bills, fees for services. Now, occasionally we'll have folks say, why don't you just use some money from your water and sewer fund to help fund expenditures so that you don't have to talk about property taxes? However, the water and sewer fund should not be used to fund operations in our general fund. It may be enticing to want to transfer revenues from enterprise accounts to cover expenditures in the general fund. And while the general statutes may allow such transfers, it's recommended that local governments not cross the streams. Gratuitous Ghostbusters reference.
It's appreciated.
Capital project funds. Capital project funds are primarily established for the construction of major capital improvements. Capital projects fund may include debt finance projects and those which take multiple years for us to complete. The council plans for these projects using the CIP. The main sources of revenue from this are transfers from other funds. That would be from the general fund and the water sewer fund, or from fund balance. The one exception is we may occasionally get grants, and the staff have been phenomenal about getting grants in the past year. We've gotten a little over $3 million in grants, which is extremely helpful. Fund balance, as I mentioned before, is a source of funding for capital projects. And fund balance is money that is appropriated to finance expenditures in the next year's budget. In simple terms, very simple terms, this is a savings account. It may be used to fund capital projects or in the event of an emergency. It may not be used for operational expenditures in our general fund. Our policy, council's policy for the general fund, for fund balance, requires that the town keep an amount equal to 40% of our annual budget, or roughly $3 million, saved in our fund balance. And there are both restricted and unrestricted funds in fund balance. An example of a restricted fund balance would be money that's been set aside for a capital project but has yet to be spent. For example, in our water and sewer fund balance, we have projects that we know are coming up. Those are earmarked, and those are restricted funds. A little bit about the team. There are 4 major players in our team. It begins with the town council. The adoption of the annual budget is one of the most important activities undertaken by the council. And the budget serves as the council's primary opportunity to establish priorities for services and programs for the coming year. Council does not review each line item, rather they are responsible for the overall budget and for providing guidance to the staff for the provision of services and capital projects which are outlined in both the strategic plan and the CIP. The budget officer is the town manager by law. He or she is responsible for budget preparation and presentation to the board, but make no mistake, if it was not for the finance officer and her team, we would not be here this evening. They have put a tremendous amount of effort into providing this document for you this evening. They are the key to our budget success. The finance officer and their team have the largest burden in preparing this budget. But I do not want to forget our staff. Each of our department heads is responsible for creating the line item budget that works to address the council's priorities for services and programs that have been identified in those plans like the strategic plan and the CIP. So, to this year's budget. The budget direction from the town council has been that we need to take care of our existing assets first. Our assets begin with employees, go down to infrastructure like our utility lines, streets, our equipment, and also our buildings and spaces like town hall, parks, and our library. The town of Jamestown's mission statement, as I said earlier, is to create an exceptional quality of life for all of our citizens by providing superior services. Staff have been charged with presenting a balanced budget, which preserves those superior services, maintains assets, and seeks to add additional amenities for our citizens. Preparing a balanced budget, which allows for forward progress, is an investment in ourselves, for our citizens now, our future citizens, and for the overall quality of life for all of those folks. It would be bad if I did not tell you a little bit about our services. Jamestown services are phenomenal. We boast that we have a full-time law enforcement option with full-time fire protection. We have weekly solid waste and recycling, so garbage and recycling collection, weekly yard waste collection, monthly bulk solid waste collection, continuous loose leaf collection in season, which is October through February, a robust Parks and Recreation department with various open spaces, sidewalks, and parks for everyone to enjoy, and a well-trained and professional staff, certified planners, professional engineers, certified finance staff, certified Parks and Recreation staff, et cetera. And those folks are here to help serve our citizens. But this year, as in the past year, we have been dealing with some challenges. Those include inflationary pressures. Operating costs, the cost for goods and services, labor, construction, et cetera, continue to rise. We often hear folks say, but I've been hit with X. We are also hit with X. As you know, we're operating a business. It is the business of the government of town of Jamestown, so it's a little bit different than a private business, but we do see the same sort of pressures. Duke Energy has indicated that they will be going up 24% this year, with an additional rate increase over the next few years. They're smaller, but Piedmont Natural Gas is going up 15%, healthcare costs 5%, telecommunications 15%. Fuel costs are anticipated at approximately 20%. Our solid waste collection fees, which you'll hear about a little bit later, up 10%. Tax collection costs 13%. Insurance and bonding up 20%. Mandatory employee contribution to state retirement system up almost 2%. Water and sewer rates up 10%. And there is some anticipated reduction of our investment revenues, just because we think the interest rates may fall slightly. So our initial budget number crunch, after we've met with you over the last few budget meetings, bring our anticipated revenues at roughly $7.7 million. Now, these are rounded numbers based on what I presented to you at the April 19th meeting. General fund expenditures were anticipated at roughly $7.9 million. The actual difference was roughly $260,000. So as we review our budget, we need to keep in mind that for every penny of tax that we charge, we're getting about $60,000 in revenue. To balance the budget, per the law, we would need approximately a 4.5-cent tax increase exclusive of capital projects. And that was the initial look at the budget at the April 19th meeting. So if you weren't able to make the April 19th meeting, I'm giving it to you again. And I know you were all there. So staff went through each of the departmental budgets with a fine-tooth comb. We cut as much as possible without impacting services. Cuts were made prior to presenting this initial budget to the council at the 419 workshop, and those included 2 part-time positions for recreation, removed, budgeting software, removed, holiday decorations, removed, and some smaller incremental tweaks have been done to each department. Some of the larger items which impacted the council's strategic plan goals were brought directly to you, the council, for consideration at the 419 budget workshop. Those were the Lead for North Carolina Fellow, funded at $25,000, customer service training at $23,000, sheriff department vehicles, there were 2 for $100,000 total, and special events for golf and recreation at $15,000. Recommendations were also made to the council to increase the solid waste fees by $3 per month to help reduce the stress on the general fund. If you recall at that meeting, we've done an analysis. It does cost us about $32 per household per month just to provide the level of service that we're providing. Currently, residents pay $15 per month for that service. After a lot of discussion, and that's hard to see, I recognize that, but after a lot of discussion, council arrived at the following consensus. The Lead for North Carolina Fellow, the intern, at $25,000 should be removed. After I contacted the School of Government about that, they did offer an additional $10,000 to help reduce our liability down to $15,000 for the employee to work for just almost 1 year, which the council did agree by consensus to leave in the budget. So we would retain that fellow for $15,000. Customer service training was retained. The Sheriff Department vehicles, after discussing it with the Sheriff's Department, they indicated that they had some room to go at least 1 more year on those vehicles. So the consensus from the council at that meeting on April 19th was to remove those and to remove the special events from golf and recreation for a total of $15,000. This would leave a deficit of about $135,000, or approximately 2.25 cents of necessary tax increase to balance the budget. Staff recommended rounding down to 2 cents tax increase to fund the general fund and to balance the budget. Recommendations about solid waste, as we just discussed, the council requested the removal of the $3 monthly fee from our budget, which is a total of about $50,000 of revenue, but the consensus was to replace that revenue loss with a 1 cent tax increase to cover the difference. That's the general fund. Now we're going to move over to our capital improvements program, CIP. Anticipated capital needs impacting the general fund for fiscal year 24-25 were reported to the council at the budget retreat, and it totaled approximately $6.1 million. Of this total, approximately $4 million has been funded through grants that staff were awarded. Of the remaining $2.1 million in needs, staff recommended deferring approximately $1.45 million, which left critical projects, which we feel like must be done for safety and a couple other things, totaling about $650,000. Staff reported to the council that approximately $700,000 in unrestricted fund balance was available for those projects to fund those projects. However, staff believed that a fiscally conservative approach would be to fund a portion of the capital projects from the operating account, the general fund. And to do so, we would recommend a 2 cent tax increase, which would yield approximately $120,000 to help offset the pressure to the fund balance. So if you're keeping score, that's 4 cents. Consensus among the staff and the council following the April 19th budget was as follows: 2 cents to balance the general fund, 2 cents to increase our capital project fund to fund capital projects, and a 1 cent tax increase to avoid solid waste fee increases previously budgeted at $3 per month. The total would be a 5 cent tax increase for ad valorem taxes. Moving on to water and sewer, which is usually a little bit more cheerful. As a self-supporting enterprise fund, water and sewer rates fund all business activities and capital projects. As you well know, we partner with PTRWA, the Piedmont Triad Regional Water Authority, City of Greensboro, and the City of High Point for the provision of utility services. Rates were reviewed for each of our partner agencies, and the minimum increase that would be needed to cover increases from their partner agencies would be 10.25%. However, after consulting with the Environmental Finance Center at UNC School of Government, it was determined that our rates were a little bit low, and that given the upcoming capital projects at PTRWA and the City of High Point's Eastside Wastewater Treatment Plant, it's recommended by the staff that the water and sewer rates increase by approximately 14% in fiscal year 24-25. So, the main question is, how does this impact our residents? The average property tax value in Jamestown is $239,000. That's very different from your fair market value. You can sell your property, your residence, probably for more than that tax value, but that is what your taxes, the rate are based on. So with an average property tax value of $239,000, a 5 cent tax increase would result in an increase of about $120 per year, or $9.96 per month. The average water bill, which we look at as 8 units of consumption for our in-town customer, would rise approximately $10.40 per month. However, if you use less than that, it'll be less than that. No changes are proposed in this budget that has been presented to you tonight for solid waste fees, as we discussed. Apologies. So, just getting towards the end here, the takeaway is that inflation does affect us all, including the town. Costs of goods and services are increasing, and we believe that we must be fiscally responsible to our taxpayers to budget conservatively and to prepare the town for both our current and our future challenges. Our staff will continue to try and maintain our aging infrastructure while seeking creative avenues to fund our new amenities through grants and other funding sources. As I said, staff have received a little over $3 million in grant funds in the past year and a half. It's phenomenal. The expenses laid out in this year's proposed budget reflect an investment in the future of Jamestown. And a little bit about the adoption process. The budget presented tonight is a balanced budget. All anticipated revenues and expenditures are balanced. General fund is roughly $8.45 million, including capital projects. Water and sewer is roughly $7.98 million, including capital projects. This will place the town in compliance with General Statute 159. As I said, it will not be voted on tonight, but will be considered for a final vote at the June 25th regular council meeting in this room. Any anticipated changes would be requested to be discussed with a quorum of council presidents and shared with the finance director and myself prior to May 31st so that we can change that budget message. Now, that may not be possible due to everybody's commitments in life, but we have met the statute requirement for presentation to the board. Following adoption of the budget, the new budget will become effective July 1st. I'm going to say that this is a public hearing, and I'm going to yield the floor to the council for public comment. However, just a little reflection on how a public hearing works. It is a public hearing, and it is a great time for citizens to come and make comments about the budget. However, I would ask that if people have questions or concerns about the budget, that they contact myself or Faith or Heather so that we can work out a time to meet with them to help them understand the budget a little bit better. It is a very complex animal. It's just a lot of moving parts. Please do not consider what you hear on the street as gospel truth, because it may not be. Faith has a lot of years of experience doing this, and I'm going to ask that you at least yield to her, let her speak to you and answer your questions before reaching a conclusion. If you have any questions for me, I'd be happy to try to answer them at this point.
Any questions for Matthew this time?
No.
Thank you very much for your work on the budget.
It's good, very good.
Thanks.
Thank you, Matt.
At this time, I'll open the public hearing to anyone who would like to come to the podium and speak concerning the budget or the CIP. Please state your name and your address when you approach the podium.
I waited a bit to see if somebody else might jump up before me. Robert Frederick, 500 Windwood Drive. Mayor and council, this recommended budget calls for raising the water sewer rates 14% and raising the property tax rates 8.5%. Now we have, and we keep discovering more, serious water and sewer problems. But given my 3 short minutes, I'm going to let other people talk about the water and sewer rates and focus instead on the property tax rates that are part of the general fund that you all decide how it gets spent. As best I can tell, it looks as though this budget is simultaneously claiming $500,000 worth of interest income, but also paying $750,000 in debt payments. As best I can tell, it looks as though there's, again, a strong interest in setting money aside for the fund balance, but simultaneously borrowing even more money in the form of installment debt. Council did it last year too. It's line 3920 in the revenues section. Now, I don't know about you, but it's hard to square all of that. It takes a lot of money to generate $500,000 in interest, given the requirements of a municipal government not to use risky investment strategies. And yet Jamestown is borrowing even more this year, some of which will be to go into making the low interest rate fund balance bigger. I know you heard that you're not to concern yourself with line items, but I believe there are some other line items to consider, this time in expenditures, if for nothing else than to understand what's going on given the lack of information. Line 4200-1000. For 2 years in a row of budgeting, this has been well more than $100,000 more than was spent. Consider taking $100,000 out of those expenditures. 6200-1000. Again, budgeting more than $100,000 than last year, or has been regularly spent. Consider taking that $100,000 out of expenditures. I know these are about salaries and wages, but really, are we talking about increasing or maintaining the level of service? Also, 5800-2520, budgeting twice as much for fuel and oil, $80,000, than has regularly been spent. So remove $40,000 out of expenditures. This budget has a lot more detail than last year's, but it's still short on description. For example, there are a lot of line items that simply are listed as capital outlay and other contracted. What are these things? In some, though, just those 3 line items alone total $280,000 that can be removed from expenditures. That's more than the $255,000 shortfall Mr. Johnson presented you with at the last budget retreat. Finally, for a second, I'm going to ask you to turn that off, because I just found you $100,000 in revenue. Turn it off.
Thank you, Robert.
Turn it off.
You've had your 3 minutes.
I found you $100,000 in revenue from D.R. Horton tax money. And if you check your email, you'll see that the tax monies from D.R. Horton will now be coming to Jamestown. Before, it was just going to the county and was being underreported. So
Do we have
altogether,
anyone
that's
else who is signed up to speak?
$380,000, and I've identified $100,000 from D.R. Horton that will soon be in Jamestown's bank accounts. And that's with a budget that is lacking a lot of information. It seems to me there's no reason to raise property taxes at all to account for the shortfall identified by the budget officer, Mr. Johnson. Thank you.
Would anyone else like to speak concerning the budget or CIP? Seeing none, we'll return to council. Council, do you have any discussion at this time?
Well, I think, of course, staff has worked diligently, very hard. It's been a tough budget year, but it's a tough budget year for people. Of course, I've been preaching the same sermon, that obviously I'm the oldest person on the council, and I do speak with older folks that are on fixed income or disabled veterans, and I've talked about their single moms and single dads that are struggling, and they're sitting at their kitchen table like the town has had to do, figuring out they're having the same increases. As town manager said, the town also has experienced that. And I always was coming back to the values in our strategic plan. I mean, it's hard. This is really hard stuff because we are responsible for the town. And maintaining assets, which the town manager did a great job in his presentation of breaking it down of what all is involved in doing this budget. But I come back to show in our values in primary that compassion and fairness, we're to show compassion to everyone, our citizens, our staff, and our visitors. When we make decisions as a town, we are thoughtful and understanding of how those decisions will affect our citizens. And we hold ourselves accountable and remember that we're accountable to the citizens. And I just don't want us to lose fact that there's people struggling. Some people, this won't affect them at all, but when we're crunching these numbers, I just hope that we'll remember that is part of our values.
Any other comments for it to be continued?
I guess my question is, shoot, and I can't remember where it was. So it said that there's a request to, any anticipated changes are requested to be discussed with a quorum of council present and shared with the finance director and myself prior to May 31st. So I guess this is really our only opportunity to do that. I know we may have an opportunity after May 31st, but.
Well, I think Matthew had mentioned during the presentation that since the information is out, we've got a little bit of leeway.
Oh, okay.
And so I was going to propose setting a budget workshop for, if this is an appropriate time.
Let's continue the public hearing, and then
Okay.
we will get to your motion. Do I have a motion to continue the public hearing?
I move to continue the public hearing.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
To continue it to the June
Oh.
25th Town Council meeting at 6 PM in the Civic Center without further advertisement.
That's exactly what I said.
Yes, okay.
Thank you, Katie. Okay, Rebecca, I guess we are here to, did we vote? Katie?
Yep.
Okay. Your motion?
Yes, and this is just because, I think as Nick mentioned when he was doing his presentation, that, the audit was more of a bear of a process than, and we, with Faith taking over for Judy and everything, I think staff has done a fantastic job, but we were a little more crunched than we have been in past years, and so I was going to make a motion to set a fourth budget workshop on June 13th at 10 a.m. in the Civic Center and request that the town clerk advertise.
I'll make a second to that.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you, Rebecca.
That's June 13th at 10 o'clock.
10 o'clock.
Right here or be.
Yep.
Thank you, ladies. And Anna, would you come forward to set a public hearing date?
Good evening. This item is to adopt a resolution setting the public hearing date for 1903, 1905, 1915 Guilford College Road. I'm on the right part, right? Yes. Under General Statute 160A-31, the town has received a petition for the properties located at 1903, 1905, 1915 Guilford College Road. As a first step, the town council directed the clerk to investigate the petition by adopting a resolution instructing her to do such. The clerk and the town attorney have investigated the petition and have found it sufficient, and a public hearing on the matter was scheduled. The staff recommended that the council set a public hearing for the consideration of the rezoning this says rezoning, but actually it should be a setting for the annexation of the parcels located at 1903, 1905, 1915 Guilford College Road for the June 25th, 2024 regular meeting at 6 p.m. in the Civic Center. So just an overview, last month we set the rezoning for those properties for the June 25th meeting. This is now for the annexation, as the clerk and town attorney have found the certificate of sufficiency sufficient.
Do I have a motion to set that? public-
I make a motion to adopt the resolution setting a public hearing date for the consideration of the annexation of parcels located at 1903, 1905, 1915 Guilford College Road for the June 25th, 2024 regular meeting here at the Civic Center at 6 p.m.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. And Anna, if you will continue into our public hearing on the rezoning request.
Absolutely. Tonight, we're hearing the public hearing for case 2024-02. This is for 100 near Lenox Drive. This is for a 1.7 acre portion of a 4.56 acre parcel. The request is from residential Main Street transitional to conditional zoning residential Main Street transitional. The conditions on the conditional zoning are these 6 conditions. Maximum number of units shall be limited to 24. All units shall be 1-bedroom units. Building height shall be limited to 3 stories, exclusive of architectural roofline features. I will note this is to match the existing condos. Maximum number of buildings shall be limited to 2. Both buildings shall be placed on existing Phase 2 building pad locations. And finally, Phase 2 shall maintain its own separate dumpster and recycling areas. So to give a little zoning history, this zoning is a little different than what we usually see. You may notice it's going from residential Main Street transitional to an incredibly similar zoning of conditional zoning residential Main Street transitional. This is because of the adoption of the new LDO back in 2009. This property was initially rezoned in 2004 to be R9 special use. In 2009, the town adopted a new LDO, and this R9 turned to residential Main Street transitional, RMST. When that happened, the density requirement changed to 8 units an acre. So whereas before they could build 2 12-unit buildings, this limits them to only 13 units on this size property. So in order to make them whole with taking the 2 existing building pads, they would need to rezone it to allow a density to meet what they originally had planned to be built out as. As a property overview, this shows the building pads in blue and the existing condos in red. All put together is the current full parcel. Only the area in blue is being rezoned. Currently, as you saw, there are 2 condo buildings. Both buildings have 12 2-bedroom units. There are also 2 empty building pads. These are bordered by commercial Main Street transitional to the north. If I can go backwards. Nope. Conditional Main Street transitional to the north. To the south is industrial and single-family residential. To the east is Main Street that's currently vacant. And to the west is Main Street transitional and industrial. The proposed buildings in the rezoning area would need to meet our tree conservation area and open space requirements. My initial staff report had an error, and this has since been corrected. The required tree conservation area is 1,117 square feet, and the required open space is 12,000 square feet. The current natural space available, that's anything that isn't covered currently by a building pad, is 39,500 square feet, ample space to meet these requirements. I do want to note that any buildings that are built, as shown in the conditions, will be built on the existing pads. The only new and impermeable surfaces would be sidewalks leading up to those building pads. Parking, this came up in planning board, so I wanted to make sure we put it in here for you. The 2 existing buildings, what was shown in the red area before, has 46 spaces currently available. The required minimum from our LDO is 24. The proposed building area, the 2 empty pads, have 42 spaces available, and per our LDO require 24 spaces. There's nearly double the spaces required. The future land use plan describes this area as West Main. I'm going to read this to you. The West Main future land use classification is applied to the majority of the land along West Main Street from the town center to town's western border with High Point, from Ragsdale Road to Penny Road. This land use classification is intended to accommodate a wide variety of low to moderate intensity uses, including offices, civic uses, attached residential development, and small format retail stores along this traditionally mixed use corridor. With the majority of the parcels in this area also located in the Jamestown National Register Historic District, new development will be sensitive to rich historic context of the area and utilize development styles that blend well with unique character of the West Main corridor. There are 3 guiding principles that I've pulled out that I think apply and align with this rezoning. Guiding principle number 1, Jamestown will actively facilitate high-quality growth that is both compatible with the town's traditional development pattern and innovative in how it meets the needs of our diverse and dynamic community, ensuring that infill development is compatible with its surrounding from both a use and aesthetic perspective. Guiding principle number 2,
that the strength of our community is directly tied to the long-term success of our neighborhoods. We will work diligently to promote and maintain the quality of life and aesthetic standards that our residents expect in Jamestown. Ensure that Jamestown's residents have access to housing that is appropriate for all stages of life and family situations, including housing to allow older residents to age in place. And finally, guiding principle number 10. Jamestown is a welcoming and inclusive community that values the benefits of diversity in all aspects to the town and its residents. Promote the development and retention of a wide range of housing types that meet the needs of current and future residents of all ages, ability, family compositions, and socioeconomic backgrounds. With those guiding principles in mind, I would like to make note that zoning decisions cannot be made on if buildings are rented or owned. It is not, as was said at the last meeting, depends on who's behind the door. You cannot make a decision based on that, based on general statute. We also, fortunately, are not in charge of HOAs. Any problems with an HOA should not be considered as a reason to continue or deny a rezoning. The Planning Board heard this rezoning request at its March 11th and April 8th meetings. At the April 8th meeting, the Planning Board unanimously voted for the proposed zoning amendment to be approved. Consistency statement was also adopted and unanimously approved. That consistency statement is in your packets in the staff report. That's what I have for you today as a brief overview. And a representative for the applicant is also here today to present and can also answer any questions that you may have specific to the applicant. If you have nothing for me, I'm happy to hand over the floor.
Any questions for Anna?
No, we'd like the public hearing.
Yeah. Would the applicant like to make the presentation at this time?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Mayor Montgomery and members of the council. It's nice to see all of you again. Amanda Hodiern, 804 Green Valley Road, Suite 200 in Greensboro.
I have a fear of that.
That's a drop the mic.
That is a drop the mic moment. She's like, that's all I need to say, my address.
Hopefully, this won't require that kind of dramatics. Thank you so much, Anna. Okay. Thank you, Anna, for that presentation. I think she covered a lot of the good technical points and a lot of the planning concepts that I wanted to cover, but I will lift up a few items. Scroll down. Thank you. There we go. Okay. Oh, that'll work. All right. So as you saw and heard, currently this is a larger parcel than what we're asking to rezone. So just to kind of set the stage here, this is a 1.7 acre request. When we look at just what I'm calling the phase 2 that's before you tonight. The request, as you've heard, is to rezone to conditional zoning RMST. So we're not changing the actual district designation, the conditions that go with it, or what we're looking at here. And this rezoning is necessary to complete an already contemplated, designed, and started development known as Lenox Square. The original zoning in place at the time that it was originally approved allowed for exactly what you saw contemplated. You see the 2 pads out there, and so the parking was done for all of this. But it didn't get completed before the 2009 LDO change. That changed the density, and, I guess was just not noticed or not thought about until the current owner put this property on the market. And my client, I represent Berkeley Communities, Mr. Sterling Kelly, became interested in it. And that's because he's already a owner and operator here in Jamestown. Mr. Kelly with Berkeley Communities purchased Courtyard condominiums right across the street. Brought that property to a nice, thriving success. It's now a good contributing part of the housing community here in Jamestown. Berkeley Communities has enjoyed being here and has been actively looking for more opportunities to increase its footprint in Jamestown. So when this opportunity came about right across the street, a nice small additional opportunity for units that they could manage with good efficiency from their operation already on the ground, it was really a no-brainer for them. So that's why we're here. Once they got into contract negotiations and due diligence, they realized the density deficiency talked with your staff, and that's how we got here today to what I would submit to you, restore the rezoning density back to what was contemplated and imagined, and the infrastructure was laid for. So the request before you to go from what the current zoning district allows, now that the density's been reduced, to what we need to get back to is an increase of just 10.4 units. So it's a very small technical adjustment to get back to where we need to be. Next slide, please. So the proposed conditions, you heard these from Anna, but just to reiterate, maximum number of units is limited to 24. So you know exactly what you're going to get on those two pads is exactly what we all thought for the last 20 years, 12 units in each building. One-bedroom units, that's different than what was contemplated. That's less. The current two buildings out there actually, I believe, have 2 bedrooms, all of them, if not all of them, most of them. So this is all going to be one-bedroom units. The building height should be limited to 3 stories. I apologize for my typo there, not stores, stories. And that's to match the existing Lenox Square. We want to be nice and compatible. And that is exclusive of any architectural roofline features. You see the current buildings out there have nice gabling and kind of dormer features. So when we say 3 stories, that's living area. Maximum number of buildings limited to 2, so you know the scope and extent of the intensity. Both buildings shall be placed on the existing Phase 2 building pad locations. I do want to highlight, in case you see it happening out there, the current pads of actual concrete need to be replaced. They're old, they've deteriorated, but the locations are not going to change. Phase 2 shall maintain its own separate dumpster and recycling areas, just so current residents know that what they have going won't be strained or stressed with new resident use. If we could go to the next slide, please. This is an aerial image. You saw this from Anna, but this is a little more zoomed out just to give you the context. You can see how close this site really is to your downtown core. So that's exactly what this zoning district is about, to infuse that core with some residents. They can walk to the Oyster Bar, to all the other great things you guys have downtown, and really give that livelihood and vitality to people who want to be close to the places where they work, live, and play. So this creates all of that opportunity. I also want to point out, you see where the red dot is, that's the site, and you see that the land use pattern won't change at all. You already see the impervious surface of the building pads. This is going to drop right in exactly as the community has already, accepted it and thought it to be. If we could go to the next slide, please. And this, of course, is what's there, just to show you what a nice and well-kept community this already is. This is looking at it from West Main Street, of course, and you see that nice long driveway. You noticed from the aerial, the site kind of sits back from the road. So when you're driving down Main Street, you really won't see a difference at all when these buildings actually get built, I don't think, because the advantage of waiting 20 years is that all your buffer vegetation has grown in. So it's all there, just waiting to shield something. So this is that nice approach that will remain in place. And if we could go to the next slide. This is what you see when you get to the top of that drive and you turn in. This is where the 2 buildings would sit. This is the parking, just needs to be restriped, and it's ready to go. As Anna said, the only thing needed are sidewalks to approach the units. Next slide, please. Your existing zoning map, again, just lifting up the land use pattern in place here. It's that nice, healthy patchwork that you want to see in your core, where you've got opportunity for live, work, and play in close proximity to one another. And of course, the zoning that we're asking for is that mint green, and that won't change. The color on your map won't change at all. Next slide, please. As Anna mentioned, of course, a big part of your analysis is consistency with your comprehensive planning documents. So we're happy that this one does have that. We're consistent with your Envision Jamestown plan. This area is designated as West Main for attached residential in this corridor. Anna read you that definition, so we're consistent with that. And then we also have guiding principles 1, 2, and 10, which Anna has already mentioned and are in your packet, that support and sort of flesh out how that West Main district should work and how it should operate. So I would submit to you that this is a technical cleanup to allow not just an infill project, but a completion project, and bring forth more housing in a successful area of town, and to support the vitality that you've got going on down there. As I said, I represent Berkeley Communities. Mr. Sterling Kelly is here with me tonight. If you have any questions for him, He is a current owner and operator here in Jamestown, so I think hopefully you've got some familiarity with his commitment to his projects and his corporate citizenry in your town, but he's here for any questions as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda. Thank you. Sterling, did you have anything that you would like to add?
Really, Emily, if there are questions, we'd love to add to what we already done here. It's been a great community to be a part of.
Thank you. Any questions for Amanda or Sterling?
I was going to wait till after the public spoke.
Okay.
There was anybody.
At this time, I'll open the public hearing to anyone in the public who would like to speak. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes and state your name and address.
Robert Frederick, 500 Windwood Drive. It's important to note, and I think the applicant may be aware, as we literally heard it as she was speaking, the representative of the applicant, the train go by. The difficulty of this particular location is that since 2009 and the financial crisis that was there, we've had an increase in train traffic, significant, such that 60-some trains go by. Keeping the residents, especially at Lennox Drive, awake. About 4 or 5 years ago, a petition was initiated by the residents at Lennox Drive to silence the train horn. Hundreds and hundreds of residents signed it in Jamestown. That was then given to me to have the honor to share it with the council. Council took no action, and yet it would only cost about $10,000 a year to silence the train horn, especially at night. This would also include increasing, as has research been shown, potentially the test scores of the children, Jamestown Elementary, for being interrupted during the day if you were to silence it also during the day. So I just want to caution perhaps the developer in thinking about this place, and if not the interests aligns of silencing the train horn, then to consider that the revenues from the sale of these may be down once the other residents of the Lennox area make known that this place has a definite train horn problem. It's over 110 decibels by law, and you are within a few hundred feet of where that train blasts its horn in all 4 directions. So I just want the council to be aware of that, to potentially work with this developer. The $10,000 per year really isn't a whole lot to silence the train horn, and the hundreds of us who did sign that petition would sleep much better at night. Thank you.
Would anyone else like to speak? Seeing none, I'll close the public portion and return to council.
Well, I just had a couple of things, Amanda. I always have to have a couple of things, you know. Of course, you had said, you know, that the 2 buildings would, I just want to be sure that they would have the same architectural design as the existing condos.
They
So
will.
it would be compatible.
Exactly. Compatible is the perfect word. It won't be verbatim just because the footprint's going to be different. But yes, they will be compatible.
And I guess there won't be a rental agent on site, but it'll be the rental management company that manages Courtyard Commons. Berkeley, I guess, management will be handling the management of it.
They will be handling the management. I don't know that they've decided where their office infrastructure would go, but yeah, it would be conjoined with Courtyard Commons for sure.
Just wanted to be sure that there would be the company that would be responsible for securing the tenants and be responsible for the enforcement of the terms and conditions of the leases, including the parking lot.
That's right.
And I guess since this property is going to be split, then Berkeley is responsible for the upkeep of the grounds, maintenance of the grounds, and maintenance of the building. And then I guess I just had a thought last night that since you do, it would be good if the HOA and the owners of the condos or the residents that live there, if they had contact information for whoever the rental agent is. So if they had 24/7. If they did have problems, they would know who to contact.
Certainly, yes, and we have a relationship there already, so we'll certainly make sure that they continue to know who we are and where we are.
Yeah, I was thinking not just the HOA, but each person that lives there, because it sounds like there's some non-communication between that.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
that was all I had.
Any other questions or concerns, council?
No.
Okay, thank you. Have a motion.
I mean, I think as a zoning matter, it's pretty clear cut. So I make the motion to approve the rezoning request for property located at 100 near Lennox Drive from residential Main Street transitional, or RMST, to conditional zoning residential Main Street transitional, or CZ RMST.
Second?
It's a roll call vote.
Yes, Councilmember Glanville?
Aye.
Councilmember Rayburn?
Aye.
Councilmember Burgess?
Aye.
Councilmember Wolf?
Aye.
The motion passes.
And I don't know,
Do you have a motion?
I have prepared a statement. I make a motion that the proposed zoning amendment 2024-02 regarding the property located at 100 near Lennox Drive be approved based on the following. One, the proposed zoning amendment is consistent with the adopted comprehensive plan of the town of Jamestown because the parcel is located in the West Main Future Land Use Classification District, which is intended to accommodate a wide variety of low to moderate intensity uses, including attached residential. And the proposed amendment is reasonable because it ensures that landfill development is compatible with its surroundings from both a use and aesthetic perspectives. And the proposed amendment is in the public interest because it promotes the development of a wide range of housing types that meet the needs of current and future residents of all ages, abilities, family compositions, and socioeconomic backgrounds.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. And welcome across the street. Rebecca Ashby, would you please present the approval for the amended contract for services with the Jamestown Public Library?
Yes, good evening, Mayor and Council. Based off the recommendation from Council, we would like to reallocate the recreation services funds in the amount of $5,000 to the Jamestown Public Library contract for fiscal year 23-24. These funds became available after one of our nonprofits lost their nonprofit designation. And we would recommend that the council approve the contract amendment that's attached in your packet.
And I would like to request to be recused from this vote on the amended contract for services with the Jamestown Public Library.
I'll make a motion to recuse Councilmember Rayburn from the vote on the amendment contract for services with the Jamestown Public Library.
Do I have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Rebecca. Any questions for the other Rebecca? Council?
No.
Okay. Do I have a motion to
I make a
amend the
motion
contract?
to approve the amended contract for services with the Jamestown Public Library and allow the finance director and town manager to execute the contract.
Thank you. Second?
A second?
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. And I think you're still up, Rebecca.
Yep. So based off of your recommendations as well, we would like to reallocate the Recreation Services Fund in the amount of $5,000 to the Historic Jamestown Society contract for fiscal year 23-24. Again, these funds became available after one of the nonprofits lost their designation.
Any discussion, or do we have a motion?
I'm back in the game, so I will make a motion to approve the amended contract for services with the Historic Jamestown Society and allow the finance director and town manager to execute the contract.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you.
Thank
Rebecca.
you.
And thank you to council for making that decision. Heather, you are back up again.
Good evening again. We recently sent out a request for proposal to 3 local banks for the financing of a new leaf collection truck. The truck is expected to arrive in the fiscal year 24-25. We received 2 proposals in response to the financing, one from First Bank and the other from Pinnacle Bank. Based on the terms, we are proposing that the town select First Bank for financing the purchase of the leaf collection truck, even though the interest rate is slightly lower with Pinnacle Bank. The fees that are included would result in a higher cost to the town. Pinnacle requires a wire fee of $25 and to acquire the funds along the way, and plus we can pay it off early without being penalized. Whereas with First Bank, we can pay off with no penalty. So, so we would like to be able to pay it off at any time without any penalties. Thus, the reasons listed above, we recommend that First Bank be chosen for the finance of the new leaf collection truck.
Any questions for Heather? Do I have a motion to approve this?
I make a motion to adopt the resolution approving the financing of a leaf truck through First Bank in the amount of $279,989 and allow the town manager and finance director to execute all documents.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you, Heather. And Elizabeth Grease, we would like a litter sweep report.
Thank you. I am so excited to be here, and I just want to thank each of you that were able to be with us on April the 20th when we did our annual spring litter sweep. 48 participants and 58 bags. So it was a wonderful, successful day. We had representatives that came to be with us from the Ragsdale High School ROTC, Jamestown Boy and Girl Scouts, Cub Scouts, Brownie Troops, the Rotary Club of Jamestown, Jamestown Civitans, and many numerous town residents, town staff, and town council. But it was a great day. It is just always such a joy for me to be able to, after the event's over, to drive through town and to be able to count bags. And then for me to have a chance to report that to our local DOT office on Monday morning, and they are so wonderful to work with and respond to us quickly. Later in the week, I'm able to go back and see all of those bags have been picked up, and so it just is a wonderful opportunity for us to have some presence in our community and to help our residents understand how committed we are to keeping our community beautiful. So I appreciate all of you and what you do and how you support that, and if you have any other areas or any other supplies needed that you want to be addressed, I am available at the town hall and you can contact me anytime. I have new box of vests, new box of bags, and new box of gloves. So I am ready. So any other thoughts on your time? A couple of you, you're welcome to interject in your thoughts and ideas from that day.
Let me tell you something, everybody. So, we've got to put a warning out next year. Down here, there are killer turkeys. Pam and I were attacked by a gang of turkeys. It was like West Side Story of turkeys.
Well, and was Lawrence there to help you protect
He
you?
unfortunately gone the other way already.
He had already gone the opposite direction.
Yes. Oh my God, we heard these turkeys coming, and I was like, oh, good turkeys. And then, I mean, it was literally 15 to 20 turkeys.
No, it was probably like 12.
Walking
It was
in
a lot.
slow
Oh,
motion.
it was a
And
lot.
Pam was halfway up the road already. And then I thought, okay, well, turkeys aren't going to hurt us. And then my husband, who never gets nervous about anything, says, we got to go, drop the trash. So just be forewarned next year about the gang of turkeys.
Seasonal turkey season.
Yes. Oh my God. I mean, it was really like.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate all of your support and that you do to
Thank
help
you.
us. The staff at the town hall is just overwhelmed, our guys out on the streets. So any help that we as a part of our council and our staff and our residents to
keep this community beautiful is always appreciated by everybody.
And thank you so
Great, thank you.
for
Elizabeth,
help.
one quick question. You did say that was it the ROTC? Did they say that they were going to continue with us?
I send them the date, then they make sure they have staff available, and then they, they do their best to have as many of them come and be here. So yes, the ROTC has been active. Key Club in the past has been active, so it just depends on some of their teachers and some of their other activities may have had. In the fall, lots of times, they have responsibility on Saturday mornings cleaning up their campus after a football game. So it works out different times of the year for different groups.
Thank you so much for doing this twice a year.
Oh, yeah.
That is a big deal.
Oh, and could I, Elizabeth, I wanted to congratulate you. I just heard that you won the Mary A. Browning Award this year. So congratulations to Elizabeth.
Thank
Well
you.
deserved.
Paul, I don't know how you're going to follow that act, but you're up.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I was actually going to go say something along those lines. You got the budget, you got the turkey. Well, I'm here tonight to present the Jamestown sidewalk projects. We have 3 small projects that we bid on Monday, May 20th. That's a small segment on Ganaway Street, from the post office, the segment on the side of Food Lion on Ragsdale Road, and then across Main Street from Food Lion near the Yellow House, that segment. We had 2 contractors that submitted bids. We had a preliminary estimate, a year and a half or so ago of $405,000. My revised estimate after doing getting the real design, that was $425,350. But the low bidder was Dillon and Griffith Enterprise, LLC, with a bid of $421,053. Staff recommends that this project be awarded to Dillon and Griffith. I have also ACCI, sorry I didn't say that. Their bid was $461,770. So they were within 10%. We felt like that was pretty competitive. I think we've all struggled getting contractors at times, and pricing's been high, but we felt like this was competitive bids, and we want to recommend approval of the contract to Dillon and Griffith Enterprise.
Questions for Paul?
Have we used Dillon and Griffith Enterprises before?
They
I've
have,
seen-
they actually did the dam.
I was going to say, I've seen their trucks or something.
Yes, they do a lot of utility work. They'll have some subs with the sidewalk. This project has mostly brick sidewalk. We've got about 1,000 square feet of retaining wall, be very similar to what Food Lion has. We've got some reinforced concrete and some handrail. So it's a small project, but
And all the design work has been complete, so this is for construction.
yes, this is for construction.
All right, okay.
Any other questions? Do I have a motion?
I make a motion to award the contract to Dillon and Griffith Enterprise, LLC, in the amount of $421,053.
And to allow the finance director and the town manager to execute the contract.
Oh, and that's, I'm sorry, that the town needs to execute contract.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Next, Paul.
And we also have received qualification-based bids for professional engineering services for the 4th project of those ARPA funds that we got through Guilford County. And that's the segment on East Main Street from Vickery Chapel Road almost to Millis, well, pretty much to Millis Road there at Ragsdale High School to get us continuity from town all the way out to Westgate City Boulevard. We met with 2 firms. They were both highly qualified. We met with Trans Systems and also with Summit Design and Engineering Services. Staff felt like the best fit was Trans Systems. We had a great meeting with them. So we're recommending that the council approves the town manager and town attorney to review, negotiate, and approve a professional services contract with Trans Systems And they have local offices, well, local, Raleigh, Charlotte, Asheville, and Wilmington, and they work throughout the state.
Thank you.
And so this is just for design work?
This is-
I'm trying to keep myself straight when we've got design and when we're doing construction. Okay, all right.
Do I have a motion?
Yeah, I would make a motion to direct the town manager, finance director, and town attorney to review, negotiate, and execute a professional services contract and training system. Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
And Matthew, your public services disposal agreement.
Good evening again. As you know, the town contracts with Republic Services to accept its municipal waste or garbage at its transfer station on Bishop Road, and the current contract price is $42 per ton. Our contract is due for renewal, and the expected price increase of $3 a ton is reflected on the contract, up to $45 per ton. The contract was renewed by the town's attorneys. They are satisfied with the language, and we are requesting approval of that and allowing myself, Katie, and our Faith to execute those contracts.
Well, what's the length of the contract?
If I remember correctly, it was for 1 year. It had
that all?
expired. It takes them a little bit of time to go through their legal department and get the renewal to us. We're going to have another renewal for you for the recycling side of things, which that particular location is in Greensboro, Patton Avenue.
Okay.
And that'll be coming soon, as soon
I
as it
did-
gets through the legal department.
I didn't see where that expiration was. Okay, so it's a year. Okay,
I believe it's a year, if I'm not mistaken.
okay. Thank you.
I make a motion to approve the Republic Services disposal agreement.
Do you have a second?
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you, Matthew, and manager's report. You have that handy?
All righty. Just a little bit of update. This has probably changed a little bit since we reprinted it for you. Regarding the parks, part of and the AFP grant, the work to replace the septic tank has been completed. The water line replacement has been completed. We're going to be beginning demolition as soon as we can get those park shelters and basketball court contracts ready. Scott has been doing a great job of making sure that we continue to keep the park open to allow patrons a chance to get out there and use it. We're planning on maybe doing something when we get ready to do that, sort of a advertisement of, come out there last weekend type thing, so that we can get people to recognize the fact that we're getting ready to start our construction project. The Main Street water line replacement, Paul is anticipating a big bid package going out to the public by the end of June. He's been constantly working on that. They've had to change a few little things in the plan and change our specs based on the hydrology report, the water report that was done by Hazen and Sawyer. So they're working on trying to get that done. Some plans that need to be tweaked to meet new state permitting requirements. So that's still in progress. Oakdale sidewalks, town staff, public services staff, and Beth and I met this morning, and had a Zoom meeting with the folks that are doing the design work on the Oakdale sidewalk. We're trying to narrow down that right-of-way and easement language that we need to get people to go ahead and sign the right-of-way and easement agreements. So that's narrowing in on being completed there. Penny Road, as I said, will be in the fall. That's just going to remain on the list. Cotton Mill aerial replacement, as we've been reporting. This is an RFP will be posted by the end of the month, is what Paul's anticipating, with hopes to bid that out in July. As I've said before, crosswalks, Jason Pegram, our Assistant Public Service Director, has identified that there were some funds to complete repainting and stamping at Guilford and Main intersection, which would be outside of the scope of the water line replacement, which is what we're waiting on the other ones for. That work should be completed here in June, and so we are waiting on the contractor to be in town to complete that work. The ARPA sidewalk projects, you just voted on the smaller components, and you also just voted to award design contract negotiation with Trans Systems. So that's the update on that one. Music in the Park will continue on June the 7th with the North Carolina Revelers Orchestra, who will bring the sounds of the big band to Jamestown. This is in honor of the 80th anniversary of D-Day, which was actually the day before. It's Thursday, June the 6th. We're going to celebrate that on June the 7th. The orchestra will present selections of music that would have been played on the radio the night before those soldiers went into battle. We've posted the lineup and the event information details for our food and beverage vendors. They're available on the town's website or Facebook site. Did you have a question? Or? Sorry, I see the pen. Sorry. I had on here introduction of new employees to town council. There are a couple, and there are going to be a couple more. We'd like to postpone that until the July meeting. We knew that tonight was going to run a little bit long. So we'd like to have that just in the July meeting. I'll bring everybody in here and introduce everybody. And Councilmember Wolf stole my thunder. I did want to congratulate Elizabeth Greason on her award.
Sorry.
From the Historic Jamestown Society for her work on the preservation of history of the Oakdale Methodist Church. She did want me to let you know that there were a couple of other recipients of that award as well. Carol Brooks, who is with us this evening, as well as Shauna Moore, who's a resident of town. So there are a couple of key dates. May the 25th at 1 p.m. As you heard earlier, the Gold Star Memorial Marker dedication at Renland Miller Park. May the 27th, town offices are closed in observance of Memorial Day. June the 6th, bulky item pickup. And June the 25th is our council meeting here in the Civic Center. And I'll add June the 13th to that now that you have made the motion to do that. Will be the budget retreat number 4 in this room at 10 a.m. Any other questions?
Can I add 2 things?
Absolutely.
On Memorial Day.
Yes, Mayor, that is a wonderful idea.
Flag raising at 11 a.m. at Ren Miller Park.
Thank you.
And also on June 6th, there will be a flag raising at Ren Miller Park
Thank you very much.
at 11 o'clock.
Very good.
Thank you.
And I just wonder if we ought to announce about on Thursday night, the sheriff's is having a community meeting here
Yes.
in the Civic Center.
Yes, so it'll be 4 to 6 p.m. In this room. The state of the Sheriff's Department will be presented here by Sheriff Rogers, and we are hosting that. I believe they're going to live stream it on their Facebook page, as well as one other spot, but they are hosting that. You can find that link on our Facebook page as well as on the Guilford County Sheriff's Department Facebook page.
Okay.
So, any other questions for me?
Now, I just want to add that if you have not heard Elizabeth's testimony of growing up in Oakdale, you need to get with her. It's great.
Oh,
Very good. Thank you very much.
thank you. Council, do you have any committee reports? Also, I know you do.
Yes. I mean, I'll go ahead if anybody has.
Mine is short.
Well, we did have a Piedmont Area Regional Transportation meeting on May the 8th, which, of course, is the regional transportation, like the park buses that you see. And I was going to I've already given one to the clerk and one to the mayor, but it's a resolution that they had, Guilford County Commissioners have passed.
Sit down.
I'll just hand those then. I appreciate it. I just thought it may be of interest to you. But it's, this is the outcome of a working group headed by Guilford County Commissioner Carly Cook. And under the American Rescue Plan Act, Guilford County began a series of assessments and engagement efforts to survey the community's needs. And they found there was a recurring theme that transportation remained an ongoing barrier to the success for many people. And then they did determine that transportation has been very territorial, whereas High Point does their thing, Greensboro does their thing, the county and the park. And so there are gaps, and then there's also duplications and in those services. So the commissioners have passed this resolution, and PART has passed it, and I don't know if High Point and Greensboro has, or they've got it on their agendas to do, but basically to coordinate and unify all of the transportation development matters impacting the county and the region, and to seamlessly connect people across municipal borders to maximize efficiency and improve access for the residents. And instead of it all being about money or territory, but to try to work about increasing and providing a better ridership experience, and then money be secondary, which I thought was very cool, and I hope they do that. But that was all that would be of interest here in Jamestown.
Okay, thank you.
Well, the planning board did not meet in May due to lack of items. They do plan to meet on June 10th, in which chair and vice chair for planning board should be appointed.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Parks and Rec did not meet.
Okay.
I have no update.
And the only meeting I have is PRC, so be back next month with that. Katie, has anyone signed up for the second public comment period?
Nobody signed up.
Thank you. Any other business, council?
Well, I would just like to add that, I don't know if anybody, Coach Mike Rayburn passed away recently, and for over 40 years, he was a fixture at Ragsdale High School and Southwest Guilford High. He was a teacher, a coach, athletic director, and assistant principal, but best known as a wrestling coach at Ragsdale when I was there anyway. So I just want to say prayers for his wife of 59 years and for his family.
And isn't that service the?
It's June the
June
2nd, I
June
think, it's
2nd.
a Sunday at Ragsdale Gym, which is called the Rayburn Ragsdale Gym.
Any other business? Do you have a motion to go into closed session?
I was about to make a motion into closed session per general statute 143-318 to discuss matters related to attorney-client privilege about 301 Lee Street.
Do you have a second?
Second, sorry.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you.
to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks.